The Kthar Imperial fleet hung in the void like a constellation of deadly stars. Grand Admiral Thurok stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the inexorable Dominion, gazing at the holographic display of a newly discovered solar system. His scaled hands clasped behind his back, mandibles clicking thoughtfully as he studied the unremarkable yellow star and its orbiting planets. Preliminary scans confirm, High Commander, reported Subcommander Vex, his voice carrying the distinctive metallic resonance of all Kthar. The third planet shows clear signs of a spacefaring civilization, but their technology appears primitive. Scattered orbital installations, rudimentary spacecraft, and chaotic communication signals. Thurok's inner eyelids flickered in satisfaction. The Kthar Empire had ruled the stars for millennia, bringing the iron certainty of Kthar order to countless inferior species. Their military doctrine was undefeated, their technological supremacy unchallenged. Each new world conquered merely reinforced what every Kthar knew from hatching. The universe existed for them to dominate. How long has the species been venturing beyond their atmosphere? Thurok asked. Less than 2 centuries, High Commander. They call themselves humans. Thurok made a dismissive gesture with his ceremonial warclaw. 2 centuries? We had already conquered 3 neighboring systems when our civilization was that young. He enlarged the hologram, focusing on a cluster of orbital structures near the planet's moon. Prepare a reconnaissance detachment. 3 cruisers and 5 destroyers should be more than sufficient to assess and subjugate. The Eternal Emperors will be done, Vex responded with ritual formality, touching the imperial insignia on his chest plate. As the chosen vessels detached from the main fleet, Thurok felt only the mild anticipation one might experience before a routine training exercise. Vanguard Fleet 7 had been dispatched to this galactic sector with the simple mission of expanding imperial borders. This human world would be merely the first of many new acquisitions. High Commander, Vex spoke again, should we not dispatch diplomatic envoys first, as protocol dictates for initial contact? Thurok's scales flushed slightly blue with annoyance. The reconnaissance force will deliver our standard ultimatum. If these humans have any wisdom, they will recognize superior power and submit without resistance. His voice hardened. If not, a brief demonstration of Kthar should clarify their position in the new order. The detachment of warships slipped into faster-than-light travel, leaving the main fleet to wait for what Thurok assumed would be news of an easy victory. 3 days later, Thurok stared in disbelief at the battered cruiser limping back into formation. Of the 8 vessels sent to the human system, only 3 had returned, and 2 of those were severely damaged. Impossible, he hissed, tail lashing against the deck in agitation. Explain this failure, Commander Zexkar. The commander of the reconnaissance force stood rigidly at attention, his once pristine armor now scorched and dented. High Commander, we approached their mining outpost in the asteroid belt as ordered. We transmitted the Imperial ultimatum on all frequencies. And their response was chaotic. Multiple signals, different voices, no clear chain of command. We assumed it was panic and proceeded with the planned show of force against their main orbital platform. Yet you returned defeated. Thurok's voice was dangerously quiet. Zexkar's posture stiffened further. They were prepared, High Commander. When we disabled their communications array, they deployed what appeared to be mining vessels. We thought they were attempting to evacuate. His voice faltered, but they were weapon platforms. Crude, but effective. They used kinetic weapons, mass drivers firing superheated metal at relativistic speeds. Our shields were calibrated for energy weapons, not primitive projectiles. You were defeated by mining equipment. Thurok's voice rose to a roar that echoed through the command bridge. Not just that, High Commander. They employed unusual tactics. Small, seemingly unarmed craft would suddenly self-destruct near our vessels, creating localized electromagnetic pulses. Others released clouds of metallic particles that adhered to our hulls and somehow transmitted energy surges through our systems. Zexkar's professional composure was cracking. and they used the asteroid field to their advantage, setting traps, using gravitational slingshots to accelerate their vessels beyond our targeting capabilities. Thurok slammed his warclaw against the command console, cracking its surface. Savages using tricks and deception. This is not warfare. It is the desperate flailing of cornered prey. He turned to his strategic officers. Prepare a proper response. I want 10 heavy cruisers, 20 destroyers, and our carrier vessel with a full complement of fighters. We will teach these humans the price of defying the Cathar Empire. As the orders went out and the fleet began reorganizing for a major assault, Thurok composed a terse message to Imperial High Command, downplaying the initial setback and assuring them that the situation would be resolved swiftly. In 5 millennia of expansion, the Cathar had encountered temporary resistance before. It always ended the same way, with another species kneeling before the Empire. Grand Admiral Thurok personally oversaw the battle preparations. The assault force was arranged according to classic Cathar military doctrine, an overwhelming display of coordinated firepower designed to shatter enemy formations and destroy their will to resist. Weapons were recalibrated to counter the humans' kinetic attacks. Shields were reinforced. Fighter squadrons rehearsed precision strike patterns. This time, Thurok addressed his officers. We will not underestimate their deviousness. They faced a small reconnaissance force and employed dishonorable tactics. Now they will face the true might of the Cathar Empire. The assault force departed with imperial fanfare, warships arranged in perfect geometric formations that were as much about psychological intimidation as tactical advantage. Thurok commanded from the heavy cruiser Inevitable Conquest, determined to witness the humans' submission firsthand. As they entered the human solar system, long-range scanners detected significant activity around the 4th planet, a reddish world with obvious signs of colonization. They have detected our approach, noted the tactical officer. Energy signatures indicate they're activating defense systems on their Martian colony and orbital installations. Good. Thurok's mandibles clicked in anticipation. Let them gather their forces. It will save us the trouble of hunting them down. The Cathar fleet advanced in textbook attack formation, weapons charged, fighters deployed in protective screens. Everything proceeded according to doctrine until they crossed the orbital path of the humans' 5th planet. High Commander. The sensor officer's voice was sharp with alarm. Multiple signatures appearing throughout the system. The tactical display blossomed with hundreds of new contacts emerging from behind moons, within asteroid clusters, and even rising from gas giant atmospheres where they had lain in stealth. Impossible, breathed Thurok. Our advanced scouts detected nothing of this scale. Before he could issue new orders, the human forces struck. But instead of engaging in conventional formation, they attacked in what appeared to be complete chaos. Swarms of small, unmanned craft surrounded individual Cathar vessels. Larger ships fired what sensors identified as directed electromagnetic pulse weapons that somehow penetrated Cathar shields designed to block physical and energy attacks. They're isolating our vessels, the tactical officer reported, his professional calm giving way to confusion. Each group employs different tactics, different weapons. There's no central command structure I can identify. Thurok watched in mounting horror as his carefully arranged formation disintegrated. A wing of Cathar destroyers found themselves herded into a dense asteroid field by what appeared to be repurposed mining vessels. When the destroyers attempted to destroy the asteroids with energy weapons, the minerals in the space rocks refracted the beams back at them. The Cathar carrier launched its fighters, only to have them met by a cloud of tiny drones that attached themselves to the fighter craft. Rather than exploding, the drones somehow interfered with navigation systems, causing the fighters to crash into each other, jammed their communications. Thurok ordered desperately. They cannot coordinate without central control. We've been trying, High Commander, responded the communications officer. But their signals are everywhere, using frequencies and methods we've never encountered. They seem to be using some form of distributed command structure. 2 hours into what should have been a decisive victory, Thurok's assault force was in shambles. 3 heavy cruisers destroyed, most others damaged. Half the destroyer complement lost. The fighter squadrons decimated. All vessels, emergency withdrawal. Thurrock finally ordered, his voice hollow with disbelief. Regroup at Rally Point, Dominance 3. As the battered Kthar fleet retreated in disarray, an unexpected transmission came through on all channels. A single human vessel, small, unassuming, and bearing no obvious weapons, approached Thurrock's flagship. The communication screen activated to show a human figure. It appeared to be female, with dark skin and close-cropped silver hair. She wore simple attire with no obvious military insignia. Grand Admiral Thurrock, I presume? Her voice was calm, almost conversational. I am Dr. Thorne, representing the Solar System Defense Authority. I must express my regret for this. Misunderstanding. Thurrock's voice was a hiss of fury. Your forces engaged in dishonorable combat against the Imperial fleet. The human showed no reaction to his anger. A regrettable escalation. Our local defense units tend to respond rather enthusiastically to unauthorized incursions. She paused, her expression mild. We propose a ceasefire under the following terms. Your forces will withdraw beyond the heliosphere of our system and not return. In exchange, we will not pursue your retreating vessels. You dare to dictate terms to the Kthar Empire? Thurrock stood from his command throne, his full impressive height displayed on the communication feed. Dr. Thorne merely raised an eyebrow. I'm simply offering a pragmatic resolution to avoid further unnecessary casualties. On either side, what military forces have you concealed from us? Thurrock demanded. What is the full extent of your system's defenses? A slight smile touched Thorne's lips. Oh, just our regional National Guard units and some local patrol forces. They can be a bit overzealous when protecting civilian installations. Her tone remained casual, as if discussing the weather. We'll have a word with them about proportional response protocols. The communication ended, leaving Thurrock staring at a blank screen. The casual dismissal in the human's tone disturbed him more than any threat could have. It suggested that what his forces had encountered was not a desperate defense, but merely an irritated swat from a vastly more powerful entity. When the remnants of the assault force rejoined the main fleet, Thurrock faced the most difficult moment of his centuries-long military career, reporting comprehensive defeat to Imperial High Command. In his quarters, composing the report, he found himself unable to fully explain what had happened. How could he describe the human's bizarre, uncoordinated yet devastatingly effective tactics? How could he explain that a supposedly primitive species had technologies that seemed simultaneously crude and advanced beyond Kthar understanding? His pride would not allow him to suggest that the Empire had encountered a truly superior force. Instead, he emphasized the humans' deceptiveness, their dishonorable tactics, and their possible possession of stolen or scavenged technologies from other civilizations. He strongly recommended a full intelligence assessment before committing further military resources. What Thurrock couldn't know was that his report, combined with the tactical data transmitted from the battle, would send shockwaves through the Imperial High Command. For the first time in living memory, a Kthar fleet had been decisively defeated. The foundational belief in Kthar military supremacy had been called into question. After much deliberation, the Imperial Conclave took an unprecedented step. They appointed Lord Khan, a high-ranking member of the diplomatic corps, to lead a special mission to the human solar system. Khan was known for his analytical mind and, unusually for Kthar leadership, a relative lack of military arrogance. His task was not conquest, but assessment, to determine the true nature and extent of the human threat. Lord Tan's delegation approached the human system in a vessel designed for sensor efficiency rather than combat, following the communication protocols provided by Dr. Thorne. As they entered the system, human vessels met them. Not the cobbled-together defense craft from the previous encounters, but sleek, uniformed ships with obvious military purpose. Khan was escorted to a massive space station orbiting Earth's moon. Named Armstrong Station, it served as a diplomatic and trading hub for the system. As the Kthar delegation docked, Khan prepared himself for the challenging task ahead, to understand a species that had done the unthinkable and defeated Kthar military might. The first meetings were tense, but cordial. Dr. Thorne served as the primary human representative, alongside various officials whose roles and hierarchy remained frustratingly unclear to Khan. The Kthar were accustomed to rigid chains of command and clearly defined responsibilities. The humans, by contrast, seemed to operate in a fluid structure where authority shifted based on context and expertise. "We would like to better understand your civilization," Khan stated during an early session. "Our initial impression appears to have been incomplete." "Of course," Dr. Thorne replied with that same unsettling calm. "We've arranged a series of tours and information exchanges. With certain security limitations, naturally. What followed was a carefully orchestrated introduction to human society that left Khan and his analysts increasingly disturbed. They were shown sprawling cities on Earth, industrial complexes on the Moon, and terraforming operations on Mars. They witnessed a dizzying array of cultures, languages, governance systems, and technological approaches coexisting, often competing, yet somehow functioning as a coherent whole. "How many sovereign entities exist within your species?" Khan asked during a reception with human officials. Currently, a human diplomat consulted a device. 193 nation-states on Earth, plus 28 self-governing colonial territories throughout the system. And they operate independently, without central imperial direction. The humans exchanged glances that Khan couldn't interpret. "They're autonomous, but interconnected," Thorne explained. "Different approaches foster innovation and resilience. What the Kthar perceived as chaos, the humans called diversity. What seemed like inefficient redundancy, they termed distributed resilience. The absence of a single command structure wasn't weakness, but a deliberately cultivated strength. Most disturbing to Khan was the pace of human technological advancement. Their information networks processed data at rates that seemed impossible. Research facilities were constantly developing new approaches, testing and discarding ideas with bewildering speed. "Your species is less than 2 centuries into space travel," he observed to Thorne during a private meeting. "Yet your technological base seems to advance exponentially rather than linearly." "Necessity and curiosity are powerful motivators," she replied. "When we first ventured beyond our atmosphere, we realized how vulnerable we were. It encouraged creative solutions." Throughout the diplomatic exchanges, Khan carefully probed for information about human military capabilities. The responses were invariably polite, informative, and frustratingly vague. The revelation came during a formal dinner with military representatives. Khan mentioned the vessels that had defeated Admiral Thurrock's assault force. "An impressive defense fleet," he offered, watching for reactions. A human military officer, General Xavier, according to his introduction, looked momentarily confused. "Oh, you mean the Asteroid Belt National Guard units?" "Yes, they perform their patrol duties adequately. Sometimes they're a bit overenthusiastic when dealing with unannounced visitors." "National Guard?" Khan repeated, the unfamiliar term translating awkwardly. "Not your primary military force." The general exchanged a glance with Thorne before responding. "The National Guard is our territorial defense reserve. Local units for local protection. They're not part of the regular Space Force." The casual phrasing sent a chill through Khan's body. If the forces that had devastated 2 Kthar fleets were merely local reserves, what would the humans' actual military bring to bear, if provoked? That night, Khan composed an urgent report to Imperial High Command that differed dramatically from Thurrock's assessment. He detailed human population figures in the tens of billions, industrial capacity vast and distributed across multiple worlds, and rate of technological innovation unprecedented in Kthar experience. Most significantly, he emphasized his growing suspicion that the Kthar fleets had engaged only a tiny fraction of human military capabilities, equivalent to frontier garrison forces rather than a proper army. Khan's report reached Imperial High Command at a moment of increasing anxiety. The defeat of Admiral Thurrock's forces had already created fractures in the previously unquestioned belief in Cathar supremacy. Khan's assessment transformed these cracks into chasms of doubt and disagreement. The imperial conclave divided sharply. A conservative faction, led by Grand Marshal Kvarak, dismissed Khan's report as exaggerated or the result of human deception. They would not, accept that an upstart species could possibly rival the ancient Cathar Empire. The fact that Lord Khan had no military background made his assessment easy to question. This diplomat has been deceived by clever stagecraft, Kvarak argued before the emperor. These humans show him Potemkin colonies and speak of phantom armies, and he believes every word. We cannot allow the defeat of a single fleet to undermine millennia of imperial doctrine. A more moderate faction, including several elder tacticians and imperial advisors, argued for caution. If even half of Khan's assessment was accurate, the humans represented a serious threat that demanded careful handling. The emperor, torn between competing counsel, issued a temporary order. No further military action against the human system until a full strategic assessment could be completed. Grand Marshal Kvarak, however, was not content to wait. The humans had humiliated the empire, and worse, had caused the unthinkable, Cathar questioning their own supremacy. In Kvrak's mind, this existential threat required immediate action, with or without imperial sanction. Using his considerable influence, Kvarak secretly assembled an elite battle group from the Central Defense Fleet, the finest vessels and crews in the Empire, equipped with the most advanced weapons and defenses. Their mission, to deliver a decisive blow against the humans, forcing their immediate surrender and proving the Hawks right. The elite battle group entered the human system with stealth technology engaged, hoping to achieve surprise. They targeted Earth itself, believing that a direct threat to the human homeworld would quickly bring the species to its knees. Lord Khan, still conducting diplomatic discussions on Armstrong Station, was horrified when alerts sounded throughout the facility. On monitoring screens, he watched Kvrak's battle group decloak near Earth's orbit. "What is happening?" he demanded, turning to Thorn. "This is not authorized by the Emperor. I must contact them immediately." Thorn's expression showed the first real emotion Khan had witnessed. Not fear, but disappointment. "It appears we have another misunderstanding, Lord Khan." She activated a communication device. "System Defense Command, this is Thorn. Diplomatic resolution has failed. You are authorized for full defensive response." What happened next would forever alter the Cathar understanding of their place in the galaxy. From concealed positions throughout the solar system, within the sun's corona, beneath the clouds of gas giants, inside hollowed-out asteroids, and from quantum-shielded orbital platforms, emerged a human fleet of staggering proportions. Vessels of various designs, but all unmistakably military, moved with coordinated precision that belied the apparent chaos of human society. These were not the improvised defenders from previous encounters. These ships bristled with weapon systems that Cathar sensors struggled to categorize. Their movements suggested inertial control technologies far beyond Imperial capabilities. Their coordination implied artificial intelligence support of astonishing sophistication. Most shocking was the scale. Kvrak's elite battle group, the pride of the Empire, was outnumbered at least 20 to 1. Yet the humans did not immediately attack. Instead, their vessels performed a complex series of maneuvers, surrounding the Cathar fleet in three-dimensional containment patterns that demonstrated both overwhelming force and precise restraint. When they finally acted, it was with surgical precision. Specialized energy fields enveloped Cathar vessels, neutralizing weapons and propulsion systems without destroying the ships themselves. Gravitational manipulation devices held other vessels immobile. Some ships were temporarily shifted into a subspace dimension, effectively removing them from the battlefield without harming their crews. Within minutes, not hours or days as conventional warfare might require, the entirety of Grand Marshal Kvarak's elite battle group was neutralized. Not a single human vessel was lost or even significantly damaged. Lord Khan, watching this display of absolute military superiority with growing horror, felt his worldview collapsing. The Cathar Empire, which had dominated its section of the galaxy for 5,000 years, which had never known defeat until now, was revealed as a regional power facing a civilization of vastly greater capability. On the main display of Armstrong Station's command center, the image of an austere human female in an elaborate uniform appeared. This is Admiral Helena Vega, System Defense Command. The unauthorized Cthar battle group has been contained. No casualties reported on either side. Awaiting instructions regarding disposition of captured vessels and personnel. Dr. Thorne, standing beside the stunned Khan, responded calmly. "Thank you, Admiral. Please hold the vessels in temporal stasis until we can arrange for their return to Cthar space as part of our diplomatic resolution." "Acknowledged, Dr. Thorne." Vega out. In the silence that followed, Khan struggled to process what he had witnessed. Finally, he turned to Thorne. "Your System Defense Command. That was your actual military force." "A portion of it, yes," she replied. "What you encountered previously, what Admiral Thurrock engaged, was indeed mostly National Guard and local security forces. We only mobilize the system defense fleet when threats reach a certain threshold. And this," Khan gestured weakly at the screens showing the immobilized Cthar vessels. "This is the extent of your military capability?" For the first time, Thorne smiled with what appeared to be genuine sympathy. "Lord Khan, I understand this is difficult to process. Let's just say that what you've seen today is representative of our current defensive posture for the solar system." The careful phrasing was not lost on Khan. This solar system, current defensive posture, the implications were clear. What he had witnessed might be only a fraction of human military potential. With shaking hands, Khan composed an emergency transmission to the Emperor, bypassing normal protocols. He transmitted all sensor data from the one-sided confrontation, along with his unvarnished assessment. Continued military action against humanity would result in the total destruction of the Cthar Empire. The message threw the imperial capital into unprecedented crisis. Grand Marshal Kvrak was immediately stripped of rank and authority. The Emperor, faced with irrefutable evidence of a superior power, convened an emergency session of the Imperial Conclave to determine a new approach to human relations. For the first time in recorded history, the Cthar Empire would sue for peace rather than demand submission. The Emperor personally designated Lord Khan as the first Cthar ambassador to humanity, with full authority to negotiate terms that would ensure the Empire's survival in a galaxy suddenly grown much larger and more dangerous. Over the following months, Khan worked tirelessly to establish a framework for Cthar-human relations. The process was challenging for an imperial culture and used to treating others as equals, let alone superiors. The humans, for their part, showed neither vindictiveness nor the desire to subjugate the Cthar in return, reactions that would have been incomprehensible had the situations been reversed. Instead, they proposed mutual non-aggression pacts, limited cultural exchanges, and restricted technology sharing in non-military areas. They even offered to return all captured Cthar vessels and personnel without conditions, a gesture that the Imperial Conclave interpreted with both relief and suspicion. The Cthar struggled to understand human culture and decision-making. The lack of central authority, the embracing of disagreement and diversity, the constant change and adaptation, all ran counter to Cthar values of order, hierarchy, and tradition. Yet the evidence suggested that these very qualities had produced a civilization of frightening capability. 1 year after the first contact between the species, Ambassador Khan found himself in a private meeting with Dr. Thorne on an orbital platform overlooking Earth. The formal negotiations had concluded for the day, and they stood at a viewport watching the blue planet turn below them. "Your people have adapted remarkably, Ambassador," Thorne observed. "A year ago, I would not have thought such a rapid diplomatic evolution possible. Necessity is a powerful motivator, as you once told me," Khan replied. "Though I must admit, many in the Imperial Conclave still struggle with our new position in the galactic hierarchy." Understandable. 5,000 years of expansion and dominance creates deep-rooted expectations. Khan turned from the viewport to study his human counterpart. Over the past year, He had learned to better read human expressions and body language, though much remained mysterious. "There is one question that continues to trouble the Emperor and Conclave," he said carefully. "The military force that so easily neutralized Grand Marshal Krak's battle group, the System Defense Fleet, as you call it. Is this truly the extent of human military capability?" Thorn was silent for a moment, her gaze still fixed on the earth below. When she finally turned to face him, her expression was thoughtful. "Ambassador, you've spent a year studying our culture. You've seen that we are not a unified empire, but a collection of nations and colonies. You've noted our tendency toward redundancy and distributed systems." She paused. "The System Defense Fleet is exactly what its name suggests, a defensive force for this particular system." The implication hung in the air between them. Khan felt a chill despite the carefully regulated temperature. "You mean to say there are other fleets? For other systems?" "The expeditionary fleets operate beyond our solar system, yes. But they're concerned with exploration and securing trade routes, not conquest." Thorn's voice remained casual. "We have no interest in imperial expansion, Ambassador. That's never been humanity's goal." "Then what is humanity's goal?" Khan asked, suddenly feeling that the answer was crucial to his empire's survival. "Discovery, understanding, growth." Thorn smiled slightly. "An increasingly peaceful coexistence with other intelligent species, which is why I'm pleased with the progress of our negotiations." As Khan prepared to return to his embassy vessel, Thorn added one final comment that would haunt him for years to come. "You know, Ambassador, what truly makes humanity unique isn't our military capability. It's our adaptability. In the century before we achieved faster-than-light travel, we went from horse-drawn carriages to quantum computing. Just imagine what the next century might bring." Back on his vessel, Khan recorded his final observation of the day for Imperial records. "The humans are unlike any species the Empire has encountered. Their strength lies not in any single technology, doctrine, or resource, but in their chaotic diversity and relentless drive to evolve. Today they have shown us mercy from a position of overwhelming strength. We must ensure they never have reason to show us anything else." As his ship departed Earth orbit for the long journey home, Khan watched the blue planet recede on his display screen. For millennia, the Cathar had believed themselves to be the apex predators of the galaxy, destined to rule all they surveyed. Now they knew better. The universe had grown vastly larger and more dangerous overnight. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a question lingered that he dared not voice even in the privacy of his quarters. If humans could achieve such technological and military superiority in mere centuries of space travel, what other species might be waiting in the darkness between stars? Perhaps the humans had not conquered the galaxy not because they couldn't, but because they knew what else lurked in the cosmic depths. Perhaps, for all their power, even humans had reason to be afraid.